You are watching Beyond Talk on Pagenet. This is a show where empowered women empower, and this is a show where women share their life stories, their challenges, their trials and tribulations, and this is a show where women hold each other by hand and guide each other through the problems that they're facing in their day-to-day life. Now, today we're going to be talking about a topic that is actually weighing heavily on a lot of women's hearts. We're going to be talking about violence against women and children. Now, recently, we just heard that there was a young, beautiful woman from UCT who was murdered and killed by a 42-year-old man who works at a post office. Now, not only that, but there's a woman called Baby Lee who was murdered by her ex-husband, who is a policeman, a man who is actually meant to protect and take care of us as women in South Africa. Now, to take it a step further, a young woman who is 14 years old was literally found buried at the backyard of a house. I don't understand what is going on, but all this violence needs to stop. Now, today I have some amazing women who will be just talking to us and contributing towards this painful and just traumatic situation that we're facing in South Africa as a whole. Now, the first woman I have today, her name is Mpho Mashishi Mugo. Now, Mpho is a radio personality. She works at Radio Pulpit, and she has an organization called Women Glow. Yes, a great organization, but she will be telling us more about it a little bit later on. Now, secondly, we have another woman that I love and adore, and I respect her so much. Her name is Matoi Mthembu, and then she's an author, she's a writer, she's a speaker, and she is a founder of Kuteni Skills Development. Now, I have another woman that I also love very much. Her name is Nthabi Singh. And Nthabi Singh is a writing consultant. She is a mother of 3 handsome, beautiful children. And she is an activist for women. Welcome, ladies. It's good to be here. It's great to be here. Mm-hmm. Honestly speaking, as you can see, I'm usually bubbly and I'm loud. But because of what we're talking about today, my heart is not in a good place. And that's the reason why I picked specifically you ladies to come and just have this conversation with me and everyone else who's watching at home. And I believe that we're going to actually contribute a lot in this conversation, especially when I think of what it is that you do and the great work that you're doing for women out there. So this question is actually directed to all of you, so I'm not going to be asking any specific questions to a specific person. Now, first of all, as women, we are feeling unsafe, we're feeling unprotected, and now we're asking ourselves, where is it that we should go where we'll feel much more safe? Now, my question to you is, what is your take about all of what is happening right now with the violence and women feeling unsafe? I'm going to ask the question that where does this stem from? What is the root problem whereby we find men violently and brutally killing women and raping women as though they're not human beings? Where does all of this stem from?
Okay, can I start by saying, if we go back to the Word of God, we go to Chronicles 2, chapter 7, verse 14, where the word says, if people who are called by my name. My question is, are we still doing that? Because we actually need to repent. We need to actually seek God's face. We need to pray. How much prayer are we engaging on as human beings? You can hear now, I'm not saying it's wrong, but people are calling for the police, for the president, for whoever. But are we calling on God to intervene? Because I think this time is the time where we actually need God to intervene.
Okay. And I think personally for me, I also think we should always deal with the root problem.
Yeah.
And I know it's not always easy to identify, but I think we're living in times where a lot of men and women are wounded, and I'm talking childhood wounds, we are living in a generation of, fatherlessness. Fathers are absent. And you find that a boy child grows up without knowing their father. They never had a man mentor them into becoming a man and, how to respect women, how to take care of a woman. So we're just living in times where men and women are wounded from childhood, and they grow up into being monsters. When a man sees a woman, maybe their mother was never around or both parents were never around, so when they see a woman, they just want a revenge, you know. Sometimes for a girl child as well, when they grow up, they just move from one relationship to another because they're looking for love, you know. There's a void in them, and they fill it in by moving from one relationship to another. And that's when they end up being in wrong relationships with people who abuse them, and somehow they end up being killed.
You know, I hear what you're saying, Mpho, but I'm just going to ask this question. So I have a friend. So this friend, actually they're brothers. They have the same father. Their father was abusive. He was a drunkard. Everybody in the township knew that that man is just out of control. Literally beated their mother. And it was no secret. The community knew about it. And now these two boys are the same age. They finished school. And both of them, their lives turned differently. One is now a lawyer, doing really well. The other one stays in the streets. He's smoking dacha, and his life is just spiraling out of control. Now, both of them were asked the same question. How did you end up the way you did? Both of them gave the same response: because of my father. So both of them, one of them said, because this is the life my father lived. This is how my mother treated this is how my father treated my mother. I don't want anything to do with this. In fact, I want to change my life to the better. I want to show my father what a real man treats a woman and what a real man looks like. The other son said, I'm like this because of my father. This is all I saw all of my life. This is the life I experienced. This is what I was exposed to. That's why I end up the way I am. So my question to you right now is, yes, I understand that sometimes it's because of people's upbringing, their surroundings, fatherlessness, or fathers who are present but are not really fathers. Can we still really use that? I don't want to say as an excuse, but can we really say that is one of the main contributors in what is happening right now?
Sorry. I would say, going back to even the first question to join with the second one, I would say the most critical issue right now with men and women is the lack of identity, the crisis of not knowing where we fit in with each other. Where is the complementing factors that bring us into a nucleus like a family? Okay. The case that you just gave now, where the same experience was had, but two people came out with two different opinions, two different... There's one who catered to say, this is not who I am. There was an awakening upstairs to say, there is an identity here that I can choose to pick up and continue with, or I can go back to a better pattern that was given long before. Because this is a guy who says, I may have grown up in a house where a father was shown to be this thing, yet I know another truth, and that is the truth that I choose to subscribe to. And because of that, that will be the purpose of my life. I will live and conduct every situation that I get into in that direction. So that is for me the critical issue, because people are struggling to find, where do I fit in? And in that role, how do I then function? Should I be domineering? Should I be adding pressure where it's not necessary? Or can I become in my position as the head of the family, for instance, and just be a man and lead my family in the most exemplary thing that I know that even in my late years, this is the legacy of knowledge that I've left for my people. To say, even if 10 generations down the line, if they say, my great-grandfather used to be this kind of man, I will still be pleased with what I left. Are we leaving the right legacies? That's the question.
May I also add on that?
Yeah.
I always say life is a buffet. It gets served to you, and you choose what you want to live, to take out of that life. And as we grow up, I always say to our children, as we grow up, we need to see around us, people that we engage with, conversation that we engage ourselves to, what we listen, what we look at. I always even add by what we eat. Because whatever that we put in our systems or in our minds, it actually turns out to come out. Yeah. And when it comes out violently, depending what you eat, depending what you listen to. And I always say, which is also a very, very critical part, we listen to so much news. And so much is happening around us. What does that do to us? What does it do to our children? Do we allow our children to watch certain types of, channels, or we allow our children are freely. They hold the remote and they actually decide what they want to watch, and we're not even guiding them. And after they've watched maybe a violent scene, do we take time to sit back with them and explain to them that this is not how you handle life? Because they've seen it on TV, they think it's how it should be done, but as a parent, do we do that?
Yeah, okay, but now here's another issue that we're facing. You will find that a young girl was raped, or rather is repeatedly raped by the father in the house. And then the child tells the mother. Now the mother will say, in our culture, ihlazo. In other words, this is embarrassing. We don't talk about such things. Then they hide it within the household. And what does that mean? It means this is continuously happening. The mother's turning a blind eye because they don't want to embarrass the family in society. Now, what do we say about such cases where, as much as we're saying to people, don't be silent, speak up, especially to women, but now you find cases where children, or even sometimes the women themselves, they're being violently and they're being abused, but they can't speak up because it's embarrassing and it must be hidden. How do we work around such a case?
It's also, we're living in times where a lot of women, well, not a lot of them, but some women are dependent of men for provision. And you find that the father who's doing this to the child is the main provider at home. So the mother feels, if I talk about this and he goes to prison, what will we eat? What will people say? You know, there's still mothers who are protecting their image and their marriages, and they're scared of the husband because maybe he knows what the husband is doing, but because he's the main source provider in the house, she feels if people know about this, we won't have food anymore, or he will go to prison. What if he kills us? So there are many things involved. It's really unfortunate that you find a mother who would rather protect the husband than, you know, her own children.
You know, as I'm listening to you speaking right now, I'm reminded that there was a guy I once had a conversation with. He said to me, I've noticed that most of the time attention is given to a girl child or a woman. So in other words, we hear about girl child getting a mentor, a girl child being guided or advised, or there's mentorship programs specifically for, in other words, everything is catered for women. Women are being brought up in a godly manner. You find where a girl child is given a mentor of a godly woman to actually help her grow properly. Now, he mentioned something interesting. He said, don't you think that the reason why some men are as violent as they are now and they're spinning out of control, it's because no one is there to actually say, let's focus on a boy child. Let's focus on men.
We have that conversation with you, I think 3 weeks ago. What I'm saying here is, it's actually, okay, let me just go back to say that as women, who brought these boy children in the world? We as women. Okay, now they go out there, they're abusing other women, but they came from us. Have we done enough in raising our boys? Have we given our boys the love that they need? Going back to your point, I always make an example that if you've got twins, a boy and a girl, the boy's hair is always cut short and the girl is long and beautiful. And when they walk out of the house, you will call the girl child because you want to check her hair, you want to check everything. But for the boy, it's assumed that there is nothing to be checked. And we've got this tendency of saying that, indoda ikhali. So if a boy comes in running to you to say, Mommy, so-and-so has done this to me, you said, yeah, you know. And if your little girl comes in, maybe the girl is even older than the boy, you will take your girl and you'll hug your girl. That's why I wrote a book saying, finding a godly man from a boy child and finding a godly woman from a girl child. Because we need to actually raise these two equally because they are the gifts from God. God is trusting us with these children. What are we doing? As women, as mothers, are we raising them in a way that God needs from us? Or we've actually derived and we forgot about the instruction from God? Because at the end of the day, when we go back to God, we will be submitting our assignments. There are many people that are crying in this world. Am I not the cause? Am I not is it not maybe the child that I didn't raise properly?
So one of you ladies mentioned something interesting. You said, I think it was you, Mama. You said that it begins at home. Yes, we cry about the government, yes, but it begins at home. But now here's my question to you that, yes, it begins at home, but you find parents who are very busy trying to provide for their family and their kids. So basically when parents are too busy, what do? they throw technology to their kids. So a child is now growing with the screen, whether it's TV or a computer or a laptop, that's their friend. Because as long as the child is busy, the mom doesn't have to worry. She can focus on work, which that contributes to how we see our kids growing up. I'm saying our kids, but I don't have a kid yet. But you know what I mean. But here's my question anyway. So this child grows up, and obviously as he grows up, starts seeing attractive women, things start to trigger in his mind. Now he starts watching pornography, because obviously there's no parent guiding them as they're busy being fed all these things by technology. And you need to understand something as well. The more the child now watches pornography, the more they see a woman as an object. The more something in their mind just kind of, it just goes, a switch just flips off, basically. Let me just put it that way. So now my question to you is, it begins at home.
Yes, it does.
What do you say about situations like that?
All right. And I'm going to refer us back to the Bible, to the Word of God. If my people who are called by my name. If you remember at the beginning, when God created people, he said, I'm making people in my image. And he said, I'm giving you dominion. We're so busy with the things of this world. We're forgetting about what we're here for. We've been given the dominion, good people. Dominion is everything.
Yeah.
Yes. And it doesn't mean that we need to neglect what God has trusted us with. I know we all want money. You know, we all rush we want beautiful things. We want our children to grow up in a warm environment with everything. But if that is not everything that our children need, then we need to relook at what we're actually giving to our children.
Okay, so this question is for you, Nthabiseng, because I know that you advocate for women and children. So first of all, I know this is a blanket statement, because women are so mad and they're so angry that they paint every man with the same brush. And there's a couple of men who actually stand up and say, not in my name. We hear a couple of them saying that. But for me is that enough? And I'm asking you this because you'll find that a group of men are walking together, and then a woman passes by, and their response or the way they would whistle or say certain comments, they don't call each other out. In fact, they all support each other in actually speaking in a very nasty way about a certain woman. Exactly. So now my question to you is, when you're saying you're advocating for women, and we're seeing what is happening right now, how do you go about doing that? And how are you making sure that the situation doesn't only get worse, but it actually becomes non-existent?
Okay. In the context that we're speaking on today, in my work as somebody who advocates for women and children, I don't advocate against men, but I advocate for women. My concern is for women to know that they're good enough. The identity that they may be masked with is not the very genuine identity that they have derived from God. There is another way that they should see himself. That's why I always say, go back to the Bible, as Mama would say. If you read carefully, you will see Abigail. You will see the wisdom that came from there. You will see Huldah. You will see her as a woman who was a prophetess at that old age. Yet she could go into a school and teach. At that time where Jeremiah was also a prophet, she was the one who was advising the king. She was a woman. So those are the identity factors that are hidden under a history of false teachings. I always say this, even this morning, I believe, I created a poster and I put it on Facebook, and it's also on my status on WhatsApp. Corruption is not in the government. Corruption is not in a group of people. Corruption is not even in church. Corruption is in a person. So we could be a group of people working together. Corruption can be in one of us. Now, when you identify yourself as one who doesn't like what you see as being a corrupt statement being spoken of another person, meaning defaming them, destroying their identity, pulling them down in any way, if corruption is not in you, you will not celebrate that. But out of fear, you may not react to it. But there has to come a time where you say enough is enough. I was listening to a radio show this morning. There's a man who said himself that I have distanced myself from my friends that I grew up with they would not stop this behavior. It went on to a point whereby they were beating their own wives. These are girls I grew up with.
Yeah.
I cannot say it's okay just because we've been friends. This is another thing that I don't appreciate with women and men. Just because I've known you long enough doesn't mean you escalating from being right into being wrong makes you right. There's a point where you changed. You are no more that friend that I used to know. I choose who I identify with. It's a choice. So as much as men can say this is who we are and we are the brotherhood, there has to be elements that are identified within them. That this is not a good element. This is not what we want to identify with. Pull it out and yank it. It's that simple.
Sure. Okay, so in conclusion, this is for everyone. I'm going to start with you, Mpho. There's a lot of conversations about situations like this. I mean, you can go wherever. People sit in debates. People sit in parliament. People sit in church. We talk. We speak of great solutions. There's a lot of talk, but less action. So now my question to all of you right now is that how then can we take this conversation out of the room and actually implement it? Where to from here? My question now is, if we want to act, where do we start? How do we solve these problems? Violent men, broken women, broken world. Where do we start?
I think for me, Charmaine, we should just get to a habit of prayer where we just pray for each other as a nation. No one judges the other. We don't point fingers at each other. Just love one another, cover each other in prayer, and also try and empower the boy child, because I'm also in empowering women, but I think we should also just tap into that area of empowering men and boys. Empower men and boys, and we will eventually win it.
That's
somehow.
amazing. That's amazing.
I believe that we must start engaging in true reconciliation. True reconciliation means I admit where I went wrong as a woman. I acknowledge where you went wrong as a man. Not to blame you, but for us to identify areas where we've hurt each other, and let's come to a ground that is now clean to say, where to from here? God has never got it wrong. There is no institution of God that has ever failed. It's only men who fail the institutions of God. So if we also go back to that, simple as it sounds, it's the most powerful thing you can ever do. Forgive. Forgive yourself, forgive someone else, and engage in all of those aspects that God gives us to do. Then we can come and say, I'm a united person. And in my unity as an individual, I can then unite others. Because you can't help anyone if you yourself are still a major victim with lots of wounds. You're just going to bleed all over the place.
Thank you, Charmaine. I think we need to go back to basic life skills. What happened to Ubuntu? We always talk about Ubuntu, but we're not practicing it. We hate each other as women. We fight against each other. Women, we hate each other. And how can we expect men to love us if we, as women, we can't even stand together?
Wow.
You can't leave women in one room for an hour and come up with one solid solution.
Sure. I don't know about you at home, but I've learned a lot, and that was quite a mouthful. These are words from wise women who are actually sharing with you what it is that they actually see should be done regarding situations like this. I love what Mama said, that let's just go back to the basics, Ubuntu. And I love what Ntabiseng said, that with God, you can never go wrong. Let's reconcile. Let's go back to reconciliation. Let's forgive one another. Let each and every party involved, because it takes two to tango. Let everybody actually just acknowledge that I've done wrong. I'm sorry. Now, what am I going to do better? Thank you so much for watching. And please tune in next week, because it's going to be quite interesting. We have men in the studio who actually will be responding to what was said by women today. From us at Beyond Talk, it's goodbye.